This is fantasy, no need for panicking. You just sit back, relax, enjoy the pageantry. We love the game that's first, the one with hard hits. Like mitts, we catching wins and now we can't quit. Like GMs in the draft, we looking for an edge. We never stop looking, that's the one and only pledge. The wedge is between us and the trophy. Think about to stop on me, you must not know me. On the pod, we try to chill and keep it real. Like Bill, we always better checking for a steal. Yo, we loading up on all the sleepers and keepers. My expertise is running backs and wide receivers. Believe you never knew how much you needed. This ain't Brooklyn, but there still ain't no sleeping.
Welcome to the show. You're listening to the No Sleep Till Football podcast, a Kokomus.com production. Here are your hosts, Jerry Adair, Michael Joyner, and Richie
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the No Sleep Till Football podcast. Yo, I'm your host, Jerry Adair. As always, I'm being joined by Michael Joyner. Welcome back, sir.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, man, how you doing?
Pretty good.
It's good to see your smiling face. You know?
What's going on?
Also, I'm here with Richie Ward.
Hello, hello.
What's up, Richie?
Happy to be here, man. I'm hyped.
Yeah. Not to mention, we also got old Dan Bone over here, our producer.
Hey.
Hey, man. So what's new with you guys?
Well, the big news out right now is how many games is he going to get? They just signed Ronnie Hillman. I mean, obviously, old Jerry boy is worried about old Zeke being suspended. So, how many games is he getting, Mr. Cowboy guy?
I have no idea, man. Not sure. My hope is 0. And
You going Alfred Morris or you going Darren McFadden?
what do you mean?
For the starting running back for the Cowboys week 1.
Oh, if he gets suspended, McFadden, for sure. McFadden's a guy, I think. But what do y'all think? I don't know.
Perfect
I don't know if
cake.
he'll get suspended or not, but I don't know what they really have on him. I don't know how much we want to get into this. It's a lot of stuff, It's a lot of things. It's like a series of incidents,
Which is why.
But none of them on their own is really, bad enough thing. Or there's no precedent set for people getting suspended for these type of things.
Yeah.
But it's just the series, adding all of them up is what's making people...
I think they want to teach him a lesson because he can't keep his nose clean. It's like you said, none of it was huge except for the domestic violence thing, which they're not really, he wasn't convicted of, right?
Yeah.
So, but if he keeps messing up, if he keeps ripping girls' shirts off at parades and punching people in bars,
Supposedly that was his friend, and she didn't care. That's what I hear down in the grapevine.
He's young. He's impressionable. The league's got to teach him a lesson young while he's on top of the world. He obviously had a great year last year, but I mean, the league has to make a pretty hard stance. The best argument I heard was they need to give him a 6-game suspension and let him appeal it, and let the appeals move that down. I think the league in every domestic violence should go 6 games for first offense no matter what, and then let the appeals decide if it should be lower, which I do think in this case, everything that I heard should be lowered, but that's where I think Roger Goodell, that's where I think the league office is getting themselves into trouble. They're being the ones that are throwing the hammer down. Instead, they need to let a third-party review of what's going on be the deciding factor.
I think we can all agree that it should be more black and white. We shouldn't have to debate over this.
Right. It's like the thing is there's nothing to look at to be like, oh, this is how he handles this kind of situation. It's always different. It's always seemingly random. So who knows, man?
Yeah. Well, hopefully we find out soon. They don't drag it out like everything else.
Yeah. Hope so.
See, I love the idea of having Dak, and he could be Dak Man, and then kind of like Batman. But then you also have Alfred, who is his butler, and I think it's a fun little thing.
Who's Robin?
Maybe Robin is Cole Beasley.
Oh, I like that.
That's what I think it is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then Dez is like the Joker.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I was Danny, I would trade for Cole Beasley. That's
Travis
what I would do.
Frederick is the pain.
Just saying.
That's what I think.
Oh, yeah. Or Des,
Try.
or Jordy. I mean, go all the way out there.
Hey, I've been wanting Cole
Jordy's the
Beasley
Riddler.
for a while.
The Riddler.
Yeah, just because he's green.
I like
Has
the name.
green in there somewhere. Yeah, I don't know. But I don't know. You want to move on to the show?
Sure.
So we're here tonight to wrap up our PPR ranking challenges. By the way, this is part 2. If you missed our first episode, you're going to need to just kind of go ahead and turn this one off. Go back and listen to that one first. This will all make a lot more sense. In the last one, we talked about quarterbacks and running backs, and we ranked them all, and we had some disagreements. We talked it out, and we all grew stronger together as a result. Tonight, though, we're diving into the wide receivers and the tight ends. And as always, we're so thrilled to be here making this podcast. It's just an honor to get together like this. And, we're so incredibly grateful that you'd spend your valuable time listening to us, of all people. Without you guys, we're just a bunch of guys in a room talking to our laptops. So let's dive into this, Michael. You got
All
the
right.
first challenge.
First up is Kelvin Benjamin. Oh boy, here we go. So I have him ranked 24th. Richie has him 54th. Jerry has him 41st. And the average draft position, according to Fantasy Pros, is 34th. So the Examiner, as far as I'm concerned, the bias is toward Richie because he's closer to him than me. But once again, I took a risk. And by the end of the season, I think I'm going to hit on this. So
No
let's.
bias. Ain't no bias over here.
Well, your ranking bias is that you're closer to Richie than you are me. So we'll see how this plays out, but just know I got an out in case he chooses Richie.
Convince me.
Here we go. So, number 1, Benjamin averaged 12.3 points per game in 2016 after a season-ending injury. Now, I'm not over here arguing that he's a Jordy Nelson, but I think that's pretty good, fairly consistent for a guy that had his quarterback, or where his quarterback had the worst year he's ever had as a professional quarterback in the league. Cam struggled 1 year after a monster breakout, and that's primarily due to offensive line injuries. Next, Cameron Meredith and Nunwa, I don't know how you say his first name, Mike Quincy, Mike Wallace, Rashard Matthews, and Kelvin Benjamin. Who would you rather have, Jerry? I'll tell you who you'd rather have. Per your rankings, you'd rather have Benjamin. Richie has all of those guys I just mentioned ranked higher than Benjamin. So his
Come out one more time for me.
it was Cameron Meredith,
Mm-hmm.
Nunswa,
Quincy
Quincy,
and Nunwa.
Quincy, and Nunwa,
Yes,
Mike
sir.
Wallace, Rashard Matthews, and then you got Kelvin Benjamin. He has those guys ranked all higher than Kelvin Benjamin.
True
All right. For me, I think that's blasphemy. Next up, in 2014, Benjamin finished 15th, one spot behind Hopkins. We'll get into that in a minute, as a rookie. Now, the biggest argument I'm going to make here is you have to, if you believe that Kelvin Benjamin is going to have any kind of successful year this year, you have to believe in Cam Newton. Just so happens that if you look at Jerry's quarterback ranks, he's got Cam Newton ranked second. Check that out. The Panthers want Cam to run less and throw more. Somebody in Carolina is going to have 1,200 yards receiving and 12 touchdowns, and Benjamin has the most talent of anyone. Mariota is the only other top 10 quarterback without a wide receiver in the top 30 for Jerry. So what that means, if you go down all 10 of the top 10 quarterbacks, what Jerry's saying by his rankings is that Cam Newton and Mariota don't have a top 30 wide receiver that they're throwing to. I think that based on that, Cam Newton's got to have somebody in the top 30. In the top 30. Every other quarterback in the top 30 besides Mariota that we just said is going to have somebody in the top. Is going to have somebody in the top 30 as far as a wide receiver goes. If that's the case, Benjamin's got the talent, he's got the size, he's got the opportunity. I think that Benjamin here is going to have a great year. Now, one other thing I'll throw out is that with the run game being added by McCaffrey, with the run game with McCaffrey, he's going to be able to open up so much more. They don't want Cam running. The lanes are going to be open for him. The slot, the wide out, he's going to be able to challenge a lot more. I'm looking at him to be a top 30 wide receiver because if Cam Newton's going to be a second-ranked quarterback, according to your rankings, Jerry, I think he's got to have a top 30 wide receiver, and I think Benjamin's his guy.
All right. Well, I'll start with, to quote Michael, got to have somebody in the top 30. What he's got is Greg Olsen and also receiving running back Christian McCaffrey. Okay. Also, Michael likes to point out how last season was the worst of Cam's career. That was with Kelvin Benjamin as his number one wide receiver. Kelvin Benjamin missed 2015 with a torn ACL, which was Cam Newton's quarterback 1 year, the best of his career. In 2014, Kelvin Benjamin had 73 receptions, 9 touchdowns, was the 16th wide receiver. In 2016, he had 63 receptions, 7 touchdowns, and was the 21st wide receiver. Well, those are great receiving numbers for Kelvin Benjamin. I mean, that puts him right in the, his top 20, 21 wide receivers. He's slow. He can't run routes. He's got bad hands. He depends on his size, which is why Cam plays poorly when he tries to force him the ball. Kelvin Benjamin only caught 50% of his targets in 2014 and 53% in 2016. All right, now let me lay out some Cam Newton stats for you. In 2011, Cam Newton was quarterback 3 in fantasy. In 2012, Cam Newton was quarterback 4 in fantasy. In 2013, Cam Newton was quarterback 3 in fantasy. Okay? In 2014, Kelvin Benjamin's rookie year, Cam Newton was quarterback 17 in fantasy. In 2015, Kelvin Benjamin's ACL year, Cam Newton was number 1. And last year, Kelvin Benjamin's first year back from ACL injury, Cam Newton was quarterback 18 in fantasy. Okay, this is why I like to call Kelvin Benjamin Superman's kryptonite. Okay, Kelvin Benjamin is very boom-bust. He'll finish higher than wide receiver 54 where I have him. I will concede that, but he's going to have so many worthless weeks that I do not want to draft him before then. 3 of 7 2016 touchdowns were in week 1 and 2. 3 of 7. 2 touchdowns in week 3 through 15, and only 1 week with over 93 receiving yards. He had 9 games with 63 or less yards and 9 games with under 5 catches. He also came into camp overweight and out of shape this year. He weighed over 270 pounds on the first day of camp. The Panthers have also added running back turned wide receiver Curtis Samuel in the draft and dynamic receiving running back Christian McCaffrey. The Panthers repeatedly state how they're trying to limit Cam's hits by getting the ball out quicker, thus the additions of the small, fast receiving options that offer extremely different than the slow downfield threat that Kelvin Benjamin is. Greg Olsen is still the number 1 option on the offense.
So did I hear you right, though? It sounds like a lot of what you just said, it sounds like it's a coaching philosophy issue. And with them drafting the running back, they're going to be a more balanced team. The other thing I think I heard you say yourself was that when he performs in the top 20?
That's what
for wide receivers?
Right. I did say that. So he did finish 16th and 21st. And what I'm betting on is that the coaching staff will see what I'm seeing here, and that the team and the quarterback performs poorly when Kelvin Benjamin is targeted heavily. Okay, which is why they brought in who they brought in Curtis Samuel and Christian McCaffrey. I'm not betting against the fact that Kelvin Benjamin has a history of production. I'm betting against the fact that the team sucks when he's on the field.
I like that. And if you go back to part 1 of the podcast, part of my arguments for the quarterback all go back to the offensive line. And last year, they were decimated. They finished dead last as far as an offensive line ranking in Carolina. So, while it does sound like Benjamin could be a kryptonite, I will give you that based on those years that you just gave. It also makes it a really hard thing to do to get him the ball when he's so reliant on Cam getting him the ball. You have to have an all-line to protect, and Cam likes to run.
I mean, if they do what they say they're going to do, you guys have all heard the coaches say they want him to get the ball out faster, right? And Kelvin Benjamin is this downfield threat. He's tall and he's not particularly fast. His skill is jump balls downfield, and if they want him to get the ball out faster, I don't know how they're going to do it.
Guys, I really have a quick question about Benjamin right here. So, a lot of people have been saying that he might not hit this year. Have y'all considered the fact that his mom did pass away 4 days ago? And he said that he didn't want to tell people that, but his mom died of some undiagnosed disease 4 days ago, and he has dedicated the season to her and even swooned the whole entire Panthers crowd. He thinks it might be cancer. So all these people that have like hair growing out, like, you know, we're going to like donate the hair. Cam Newton's done like all these PR things. Today's the 31st of July. Like, she died 4 days ago. So that's something I'm really intrigued to hear about. Do you think that maybe that's why he was so quiet the whole entire time, or did this just catch him out of like left field? But 4 days ago, his mother did just pass away, and he's already dedicated the whole entire season to her.
Could kind of explain why he was out of shape too.
It's possible, but it could give him an extra hard factor. The team's rooting for him, but it doesn't change the history of production with Cam Newton.
Condolence.
You guys have had your minutes. We've gone way overboard. I'm going to examine this. Do I love Kelvin Benjamin? No. Do I love his talent? No, I don't really. But I do love his quarterback, and I do think he's the number one receiver in that offense. He's the red zone guy. I know you got Greg Olsen too. They're both red zone guys. I mean, that's what he does, you know. But I think you're way too high on him, Michael, and I think you're a little bit too low on him. There comes a point to me where he becomes a value in drafts. Whether or not he's going to go in that range, I don't know. But as far as this argument goes, I'm going to go with Richie.
Kryptonite!
Partly because I can't wait to hear his song.
Condolences to Kelvin Benjamin's mom in that situation. Last time somebody like that was going through something similar, she didn't pass away, but it was a really hard season, was Tom Brady and his mom. And we see how that ended up.
I can also think about Dak Prescott. So pick Kelvin Benjamin up on free waivers.
All right, so the next player we're diving into is a fun one that I enjoy a lot. I have him ranked as my number 20 wide receiver overall, and that's DeAndre Hopkins. Richie has him ranked a little bit lower than me at 22. His ADP on Fantasy Pro is the 11th wide receiver overall. He's going 11th wide receiver off the board. And Michael has him rated number 4, his 4th receiver. I'm trying to figure it out. Look, okay, this is a player I love, Michael. He's so awesome. He's so fun to watch. The one-handed catches, baby. The dreamy dreadlocks. And his price is finally in a range that's sort of reasonable, you know? That makes him fun to own, you know? But then you go and rank him as your 4th overall receiver, and I just don't get it. After we witnessed the absolute basement seller that is Hopkins' floor in fantasy, you're going back to the well and essentially doubling down on him. Even though this is an offense with no real proven wide receiver weapons around him to take any pressure off, no stability at quarterback, they're going to likely be starting a rookie, and we have no idea how that's going to turn out. Despite that, and despite his disgusting bust last season, you still value him above Julio Jones, Mike Evans, and A.J. Green. All better athletes with a better wide receiver one body, on better teams, with better quarterbacks. So I'm trying to understand, is this a ranking of talent in a vacuum, with all other things being equal? I just need to try to understand. He was awful last year for fantasy owners. Truly awful. Dreadful. I don't even feel great taking him, honestly, before like the 4th round. But how can you feel good about picking him there? What's changed to give you this kind of confidence?
Well, first off, let me give a shout out to my boy T. Cook. Hopefully you listen to this podcast. I would really like for you to trade me DeAndre Hopkins because he needs to be on my team. I'm a believer in him. And let me just say this. It is absolutely criminal that you guys have ranked him so low. It is so mind-boggling that somebody of that talent who has shown what he has done with the following quarterbacks: Matt Schaub, Case Keenum, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Brian Hoyer, Ryan Mallett, that Osweiler guy, and then Tom Savage. Are you kidding me? I'm about to drop some serious statistics on you guys that for any wide receiver is the best you can hope for. When we talk about wide receivers, quarterbacks have to get them the ball. They are completely dependent on their quarterbacks getting them the ball. And I just listed the quarterbacks that he's been dealing with the last 4 years in the league. And now he's got I will agree, a rookie, but I would say I'm a lot more excited about the guy that just beat Alabama in the national championship coming in than I am about Tom Savage and Osweiler. So, let's get into it. Number 1, he was ranked 6th in targets in 2016 and 8th in average targets per game in 2016 with Osweiler and Savage. When I look at wide receivers, I look at targets. You have to have the opportunities to be able to be successful. Again, I will agree his receiving core around him is not that great, even though Will Fuller IV does look pretty promising, or at least he did early in the season last year. But with that being said, there's not a good supporting cast around, but he is the guy. Now, with that being said, number 2, he was ranked 1st in the NFL in average snaps of 67.9 over any wide receiver. What this means is that more so than Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, Mike Evans, any wide receivers, Odell Beckham, Jordy Nelson, any wide receiver in the league, he's on the field more so than anybody else. Now, I'm about to give you guys the last 2 years his targets. In 2015, he was 3rd in targets. In 2016, he was 6th. Just reiterated that again. Now, with that being said, and last year, he's staying healthy, he's on the field, and for my 3rd point, I'm going to say he's got a better quarterback. Deshaun Watson had a 67% completion rate in 2016. That would put him in the top 6 in the NFL, if that translated. I'm not unrealistic here. There's no way Deshaun Watson's going to be in the top 6 in the NFL. But I guarantee you, he's going to have an opportunity to be a lot better than all the quarterbacks I just named. Now, when we think about wide receivers, the thing that I want to overly state is that you can only do so much. There's not a Ty Montgomery getting in the backfield to run the ball here. He has to get the ball to him. Deshaun Watson is a guy that can get Hopkins the ball. If anybody saw him on Hard Knocks, he'd fall in love with him immediately like I did. Now, with all that said, targets, average snaps, if you want to see who I'm targeting in drafts, those are the numbers I'm looking at. So anybody that wants to know what I'm drafting, go check those out. There's my list of guys.
Targets. Oh, what were his red zone targets? I have a fear about his touchdown production.
I think what comes up must come down, man. I mean, let's take a look at this. From 2013 to 2016, it was pretty much a big hill. You have 52 receptions in 2013 to 76 to the big year in 2015, 111, and then 78 last year. And then just likewise, you had about average 5 touchdowns a year, but 11 in 2015. Now, granted, we do know they've been playing quarterback carousel down in Houston. Unfortunately, can you really trust a rookie to be able to give him the ball as much as his stats? In a PPR league, I think that he'd be a good play. If you're in a snake draft, I would not touch him in the first 7 rounds, to be honest with you, though. He is statistically due to get about, I'm saying maximum here, 8 touchdowns, 80 receptions, 1,000 yards, which isn't bad, but do not break the bank on drafting this guy, though.
Was Ryan Fitzpatrick his quarterback in 2015?
No,
right?
2014. 2015 with Brian Hoyer and Ryan Mallett. That was the Hard Knocks year.
Okay.
Am I missing something here with his 12.3 fantasy points per game in PPR and 11 red zone targets inside the 20 last year?
Not missing anything.
It's pretty good. I mean, that's like
It's
if
not
you,
pretty
if
good.
you
It's still
play in that league, that's fantastic.
I love Deshaun Watson, but he's
No,
still
until-
a rookie, you know?
Until last year, you also had the great Arian Foster there. So if I'm in the red zone and you're doubling up on Hopkins, which is the big guy,
He's got Lamar
I see.
Miller. I mean,
Miller kind of laid a dud last year. Now, I'm not saying I'm not targeting him this year, but for last year, changing teams, changing
Texans as a
schemes,
whole on offense laid a dud,
agreed.
to be
Yeah.
honest.
I mean, they've got a defense. They keep games close. They don't score touchdowns, and that's why I don't want any weapons on their offense.
It's hard to be excited about any of them.
And I mean, you could be right. Like, Deshaun Watson could be the next big thing, but I'm not going to bet on him. As a Titans fan, I was thrilled when they drafted Deshaun Watson and traded up for him. I was like, I think that guy's got bust written all over him. But that's besides the point. You can't bet on a rookie if you're going to put his number one wide receiver at number 4 overall. And I'll see it. I'm sorry, Mike. I'm going Jerry on this one.
Numbers never lie. Just saying.
I do concur. I would not spend more than $35 in auction draft for this guy.
Danny just gave that number off the top of his head. Nobody listened to that.
Thanks.
That is the educated type of thing. But I'll get back to you. It's going pretty close to $40 tops. So it's 35. Keep it 35.
All right, this next player, it's our last wide receiver. I think he's a pretty polarizing type of player. I think the rankings are pretty interesting. I have Terrell Pryor ranked 31st overall wide receiver in PPR, pretty close to Michael at 29th. He and I are both well below the ADP of 20, and Jerry is just above it at 15. He's a unique situation with the small sample size. We've seen 1 year of wide receiver, and he did have good production with pretty putrid quarterback play. But I mean, we've only seen one season as a wide receiver. He was the only viable receiving option on the team. They had rookie Corey Coleman. He was their number 2 receiver. He was hurt basically the whole year. Barnage basically had a dud year at 55 receptions, 2 touchdowns, and he got cut at the beginning of this year. Also, Pryor changed teams. He's got a whole new system. It's going to help him with his quarterback play, but he's also not the only weapon on the Redskins. Not even close. He's learning the whole new system. The Browns let him go after surgery on a torn ligament in his finger, which does concern me a little bit. And then they replaced him with Kenny Britt. Pryor is a pretty big boom-bust type of player. I'm going to repeat what I say every time I bring that up. Fantasy's a week-to-week game. I don't care what they finish at the end of the year. I care about, are they going to win me games week to week? Pryor's a great MFL 10s play because he's going to have huge weeks. He's also going to have a lot of very low-scoring weeks. He only had 5 touchdowns last season. He only had 5 games with 94 or more yards, and he had 10 games with under 50 yards. He's got Crowder, Doxson, Reed, even Vernon Davis, Chris Thompson on the team to take targets away from him. The Redskins, I think, are honestly probably mentally moving on from Kirk Cousins for next season, too. They've said they'd even bench him if they weren't a contender this year. They drafted Samaje Perine, and they still have Rob Kelly. I think they're going to rely pretty heavily on the running game this year, too. So those are my concerns. What you got?
All right. I want to list some names out here for you. Let's try to find a connection. Robert Griffin III, Josh McCown, Cody Kessler, Kevin Hogan, and Terrell Pryor. What do these guys all have in common? Any guesses?
He played on the Browns.
It's not it. All right. Well, young listeners, these 5 players all took snaps at quarterback for the Browns last season before Week 5. Think about that. 5 quarterbacks in 5 weeks. The struggles for the Cleveland offense were very, very real. That was an offense in shambles. He was on a terrible team and still put up numbers. He looks the part. He's reshaped his body, and now he moves like an elite receiver instead of kind of a gangly quarterback. The man looks like Demaryius Thomas in pads right now. What an amazing transformation. He will step into that X role to take Pierre Garçon's spot and a really good Redskins offense that throws the ball all over the place. For the first time in his career, he will be paired with a quality quarterback. He has an elite slot receiver in Crowder, an elite tight end in Jordan Reed to make sure defenses can't key in on him. He's a red zone monster. I mean, this is what I'm looking for, friend. You can say he's too expensive, but I think he's borderline undervalued. But he's exactly what I look for in fantasy. I don't mind going down with the Terrell Pryor ship. That's me swinging for the fences, and I can live with that. If I don't want to go down aboard the really small and slow wide receiver ship. I can get mad about that. But to me, Pryor's gold. He's that dude. Give me all the Pryor.
All right, guys. All right. I liked a lot of what y'all said. The points that I like the most, that's a pretty awful quarterback list. I also gave y'all some pretty awful quarterback lists with Hopkins, and we saw how that went.
But it hasn't improved. That's the difference. Terrell Pryor is improved as quarterback.
Okay.
It could have improved. It could. You're right. It could. But we don't know.
I liked your argument on the changing teams. I have a really hard time seeing players be successful after they change teams. Although I will say I think it's harder for running backs than it is wide receivers. Running routes shouldn't be that hard. He does have a better surrounding cast. He's got a better quarterback. Even though I don't like the Redskins as an Eagle fan, I don't believe that they're going to rely on the running game. I heard that Kelly hasn't even shown up to camp yet. And
Ryan.
Yeah, he could be a part of it. But I think with Cousins, he's going to have a heck of a year. Now, they're still going to finish second to the Eagles and ahead of the Cowboys. But with that said, after listening to the arguments and hearing about it, I'm actually gonna side with Jerry here. I'm gonna go with Pryor. You made me a little bit more of a believer in him.
Nice.
Yeah, I want to follow up. I do think he's going to place higher than 32nd, where I've got him. But, man, it's that boom-bust thing that I have a really hard time with. I just don't want to have those 5-point games, you know? I'm risk-averse in that way.
Honestly, I think a good comparison might be somebody like Des Bryant that, he's going to score touchdowns. And when he does, you want him in your lineup. But when he doesn't, it's kind of like you end up holding the bag, you know?
Who do you think is going to go higher in our draft, Pryor or Dez? Assuming they both go our
I think
option.
Dez. Oh, Dez is
So
going to go.
Dez is going to go higher, but we think that he has the potential of being like
I think
Dez.
he might be a little bit of a cheaper Dez.
See, that's a different offense, though. What I think he is, you said he's Pierre Garçon.
I said he's replacing Pierre.
Okay, well, I disagree because Pierre Garçon's a target monster. Pierre Garçon also only had 12.5 PPR points per game last year, which is not what you want out of the 15th overall wide receiver.
Whoa, say that again.
Pierre Garçon had 12.6 PPR points per game last year. I'm looking up Deshaun Jackson's.
I think Pryor's better than Garçon.
Deshaun Jackson was their deep threat. Deshaun Jackson was their boom bust. I'm going to score touchdowns. I'm going to run deep routes. He's very similar to Pryor.
Interesting.
Deshaun Jackson had 12 points per game last year, but it was very. If you look at his game splits, let's see, he had 4 touchdowns last year, and he had some big games. He had some 102 yards in week 1, 40 in week 2, and no touchdowns. 96 yards and a touchdown in week 3, 5 yards and no touchdowns in week 4, 35 yards and no touchdowns in week 5. That's what you get.
I will also say, so you mentioned that Garçon's a target monster. I also found that statistic when I was looking up Hopkins statistics. And when given opportunities, I believe wide receivers have the chance to go a lot higher and to be more productive. So I actually had written down when I was going through the Meredith, the Nunwa, the Wallace, Matthews, I had Garçon written down. Then I got deeper in the numbers with Hopkins, and I was like, wow, I didn't think I liked this guy, but I actually do like this guy. Garçon. Mm-hmm. And so with Pryor replacing Garçon, as far as that play in that position, I think he's going to rake up a lot more targets from a much more accurate quarterback in the coming year. Now Crowder he'll be the big difference maker here. If Crowder can end up being that guy, then it could be a harder sell
Yeah.
on Pryor.
If I'm wrong on these roles, then I'm very low on Pryor. But you guys know in our league, I just traded for Crowder, and it's because I believe he's taking that Garcon role, and he's going to eat up all those targets. And Pryor is going to have the Deshaun Jackson role where he has a few big games and a bunch of duds.
I say I kind of guess I'm less tied to the roles that those guys had. I think these are different kind of players in general that are going to find their own roles.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I'm just a believer. Like, side by side, I love Crowder and I love Pryor.
Yeah.
But
And Pryor's a
just
better
the
athlete than
fantasy
Garcon.
guy in me, my rules, I'm picking the big guy. Give me the big guy that goes up.
Personally, I'm all in on Terrell Pryor. 100%.
Give me next name, though.
Look, Dan, the stat man. If you're gonna come in, you got to bring some stats.
You know what? The
What you
unfortunate
got?
thing is, let's just throw stats out of this real quick and talk common sense right here.
Love
You talk about a man that's never taken a snap at wide receiver until 2014. He's been the man at quarterback his whole entire life. You get him off the god-awful Browns. You actually get someone that can throw the guy the ball. Now, everyone's like, well, he was the only option, and they were trying to, rush the box when he was playing for the Browns. It does not matter, I guarantee you. Now, I wouldn't say I'd spend a huge amount of money or a top, 4 to 8 round pick on the guy if I was in a snake draft. At the same time, yes, I think he is a viable option to take a gamble on. That's why they call it gambling sometimes. So, what do y'all think about that?
It's a gamble. I'll agree with that.
It's all a gamble. Every player's a gamble in its own way.
He's a big gamble for Jerry at 15. Me and Richie are a lot lower on him. However, hearing the arguments, I could see it, which is why.
He's one of those guys I'm probably taking closer to his ceiling. It's probably closer to his. But I feel like his ceiling is actually probably
He's played for the
8 to
Browns.
9,
He never had anybody that could even blow him a football at all. You're talking about the most god awful offense ever.
We've ran Terrell Pryor into the ground. Let's talk about the next challenge. I'm challenging Richie on tight end Eric Ebron.
Detroit.
So I've got him ranked as he's got an ADP of 13th overall. He's 13th tight end off the board. I've got him 11th. Richie's got him 7th, and Michael's got him at 10th.
We're all high.
Yeah, we're all higher on him. Essentially, so this choice was kind of less of a challenge, I guess, to your rankings. As much as I really just thought he'd be a good player to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I think I like him a lot too. But I'm putting emphasis on the word "like" there. You know what I mean? In case you didn't catch it, I could have went with love. But I think he feels more like a like to me. To be honest, I still don't really want to pay up for him because to me he's not on a prolific offense. He hasn't been able to ascend to that fantasy zone where you just can't afford to miss out on his undeniable talent. Is he a serviceable and high upside tight end that you can start in all of your leagues? Yes, I really believe he is and can be that. But is he a guy that you prioritize in drafts? Do you think he's the type of player that puts your squad over the top and leads you to a championship? I have a hard time seeing that. And I could be wrong. I honestly thought I had him ranked high, until I saw your ranking. You have him above Tyler Eifert, which I think is super interesting. And I'm definitely not on board with that. If I could get him with a late round pick and have him as my backup plan, if I were to miss out on those top guys, I'm all aboard that train. They've got him as tight end 13 as ADP. That's pretty good value to me. I like him. I like him better than a couple other guys they have ranked higher on there. But the tight end 7, on average, on Fantasy Football Calculator, the tight end 7 is going off the board in the 7th round. And I just don't feel good about it there. But convince me. Help me see the light. I'm open to change my mind.
Yeah, to your point about not loving him, I don't love him either. I don't love any tight ends outside of the top 4. I've got him in a big group of tight ends that I like that have upside of
Name
being.
those 4.
You've got Gronk, Kelsey, Reed, and Olsen.
Okay.
I think there's a big drop-off after that, and I think he is a very solid candidate to be at the top of that next tier. Okay, and I don't have him at 5th at the top of the next tier, but I think he's in that ballpark. He was a 10th overall pick in the 2014 draft. He has been overhyped every year of his career by fantasy experts, and I think his ADP is just now coming back down to earth. The Lions exercised their 5th-year option on him, so he's coming back. They obviously believe in him. He finished as number 14 tight end in PPR last year, and he only had 3 targets inside the 10 and only 1 touchdown last year. It was down from 5 touchdowns he had the year before. Anquan Bolden was the team's leading red zone target last year. He had 8 touchdowns. Ebron is a really similar player to Bolden. I mean, he's got the same body type, same height, and Bolden's no longer with the team. There's little competition for Ebron to absorb Bolden's targets and his 10.8 PPR fantasy points per game. The only notable addition to the Lions receivers was Kenny Golladay in the 3rd round, and he's a very different type of receiver. I don't think he's that big body end zone threat that Ebron is. Ebron had a slow first 4 weeks of the season. He missed 3 games with an injury, and he came back really strong once he recovered. He's fully healthy coming into this season. He's improved his efficiency each season and posted extremely impressive 72% catch rate last year. We just talked about how Kelvin Benjamin has 50% over his 2 years. Up from 67% in 2015 and 53% in 2014. He's improving every year by a huge rate. He's played in 0 games with under 7.2 points last season. 0 games with under 7.2 points. It's pretty good. I mean, that's consistency right there. He had 7 games with 10 or more points and 4 games with 15 or more. He's consistent, and I think the touchdowns are going to go up. I think he's a pretty high ceiling. I don't think he's going to crack the top 4, but I love him as a 5 to 10 range.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think, Mike?
I think some really good arguments there. I don't think this one's even close. I'm going to go ahead and announce the winner, and then I'm going to say why. So I think Richie won that. That was a pretty clear one. There were some really good stats in there. Even Jerry, you started off by saying light when you talked about Ebron, but I forgot he was a 10th overall pick in the draft. And I'm a big believer if a team believes in a player like the Lions also do Abdullah, then they're going to really go for it. And the fact that they selected that 5th-year option, that's a big deal. I mean, just ask Sammy Watkins, who didn't get that 5th-year exercise. So they obviously like him. The stats last year was really good. The Bolden being gone is really good. The catch rate of 72%, that's really high. And then the consistency that I kind of forgot about. I need to maybe relook at where I have Ebron in my rankings. So that's a pretty good argument there. I'm going to go Richie.
Thank you. All right.
Good stuff.
We have a tight end here that's near and dear to my heart, and Delanie Walker. Second Titan I've had to argue against. So I have Delanie Walker as my number 11 tight end. Michael's got him at number 4. Jerry's at 9th, which is also the ADP. So I'm a little behind the ADP. I think that Michael's got him too high. I just talked about how I've got my top 4 tight ends pretty solidified. Who do you have? Who of my top 4 do you have him ahead of? You've got him ahead of Reed, there's
Olsen.
And Olsen, because you've got Eifert at 3. Okay, so yeah, we really differ on those. I understand that there's some injury concerns with Reed, and I don't understand your Olsen because he's the consistency king, 1,000 yards every year. But Delanie Walker's on the decline. Everyone is still stuck on his huge 2015 where he had 16.2 PPR points per game, was the number 2 tight end behind Gronk. I think that is just still front and center of everyone's mind. He saw a reduction of 29 targets, 288 yards, and 29 receptions from 2015 to 16. He only had 12.5 PPR points per game last season. Still pretty good for a tight end, but it's not 16.2. Walker turns 33 this season. The only tight ends to regularly produce high fantasy numbers after the age of 33 in the history of the NFL have been Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates. He's seen no receiving competition in Tennessee. During his 4 years on the team, his biggest competition last year was Rashard Matthews. 2015 was Dorial Green Beckham. Kendall Wright for the 2 years before that. Highly overrated Kendall Wright. In 2017, he now has to compete with red zone monster Eric Decker, number 5 overall pick Corey Davis, Walker's replacement, 3rd-round tight end Jonnu Smith, and Rashard Matthews is still on the team, last year's number 1 receiving. Decker is a more dynamic red zone threat than Walker. Since 2012, Decker has 1.5 red zone targets per game to Walker's 0.89. Decker also has 0.66 touchdowns per game. During that same time, Walker's got 0.34. Walker's still a solid tight end, and he'll contribute in a big way to the Titans, but he's aging. His competition's greatly increased, and the team's already drafted his replacement. They don't need to rely on him as heavily as they had in the last 4 years, and I don't see top 4, man. Tell me why.
Yeah, let's get into it. So, number 1, last year, he finished 6th in total yards. Number 2, he finished 6th in targets. Number 3, Walker had 11 games of 6 or more targets. And number 4, schedule. Of the Titans' 16 opponents this upcoming season, only 5 ranked in the top 10 last year defending opposing tight ends. Number 5, consistent. He was number 9 in 2013 in terms of total fantasy points. In 2014, he was number 8. In 2015, he was number 2, and in 2016, he was number 5. While there's no doubt they made a number of additions to the team, I also am not a big believer in Mariota being able to throw the ball. I think he's going to be checking down a lot more, and Walker's there. I mean, you mentioned Gates yourself. Even though they drafted the heir apparent, which you can ask Gates and Hunter Henry out in San Diego, I believe Walker's going to be absolutely involved. He's going to be a leader amongst boys in that offense. I don't think Decker's going to do that much in Tennessee. I believe that the wide receiver core is way overhyped. I'm not a believer at all in this wide receiver core. Corey Davis is probably the best thing you guys got going, and he's a rookie. And you guys yourself were talking about how, as a rookie, what can they really contribute? And when you got Mariota throwing the ball, I'm just not as big on it. I think Walker is going to be huge. Oh, so all those numbers I gave you earlier about finishing 6th in total yards, finishing 6th in targets, and the fact that Walker had 11 games of 6 or more targets in 2016, that was only with him playing 15 games. So let me go, if we take his numbers for 15 games and go if he did for 16, what was his pace? If 16 games, he was on pace to be the 4th tight end in terms of total yards. If 16 games, he was on pace to be 5th in 16 games as a tight end last year. Not a believer in the surrounding cast. I think he's pretty consistent from a top tight end perspective. He's going to be 4th. I think that he's a safe bet. I think he's the guy you got to get from a tight end perspective. He is Mr. Consistent.
You mean the 4th overall tight end in the whole entire draft?
That's what he means.
Yes, Danny.
See,
That's
okay,
what I mean.
Here's the thing, Michael. You had me for a while. I was getting lured in by your points. And then you went and threw Eric Decker under the bus. And you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to. What did he do to
He's
you?
such a nice guy.
He's so handsome. He doesn't deserve it. Man, I love Delaney Walker, man. I love him in this offense. I think,
Me too.
like, Richie wants to kind of push him out a little bit. You want the young guys, the up-and-comers. And I just think, man, I think he's still going to be a part of things in a big way. I think he's that security blanket that Mariota trusts. There's a lot of unfamiliar faces around there. I'm going with Richie, though. I think he wins. I can't believe you
What kind of examiner talks all about? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, that's a frustrating one.
Man, the real thing is, like, when I look at the Titans, just real quick, I've got Mariota ranked really high. I know I've got him ranked at his ceiling, but I don't have any of his receivers ranked very high. I'm probably lowest out of all of us on him because I don't know who it's going to be. I know that he's going to spread the ball around. I know he's got a lot of targets. He's got by far the best receivers that he's ever had. He's going to spread the ball around. Someone may break out, but I have a hard time believing it's 33-year-old Walker when all these new guys came.
Thank you so much, because what Michael was trying to do me is throw me under the bus earlier, being like, yeah, Danny, that's what I'm talking about, number 4 wide receiver. The tight end, excuse me right there. At the same time, looking at this guy's statistics, he didn't do anything before age 29 in 2013.
Yeah, it was Vernon Davis's backup.
He went from 890 yards in 2014 to 1,100 in 2015, down to 800. He'll be 33 in 1 month before the season starts. Actually, in about 3 weeks, but before the season starts. No, with all the options that the Titans drafted at wide receiver, yeah, I just found it hard to believe they're going to try to hit him. They're still in rebuilding mode. They are not going to go after him.
Well, I don't know if I go that far.
Ooh.
I don't know if I go rebuilding mode, but yeah, I agree with the rest of what you said.
What was that picture I shared with you guys that somebody projected the Titans at 12-4?
Yeah.
Is that 12
USA
losses,
Today.
4 wins?
No.
They had him
No.
12-4, man.
And while I do
They were
believe that
9-7 last year.
I do believe that that's crazy at
Y'all get
12-4,
pissed off. I said the weakest division of football, AFC South.
ain't no
Man,
way they
only
rebuild
one team with a
anymore.
losing record in that division.
That's the Jaguars, obviously.
Mhm.
So they lose there all the time.
All right, let's move on to our last tight end here.
All right, last tight end. I had to pull out the Eagle, even though based on our rankings, would have been a really good one. I had to go Zach Ertz. I had to challenge Jerry on Zach Ertz. And this is going to be an Eagles guy battling a Cowboys guy. And Richie's going to have to make a call. Based on the ADP, I have Zach Ertz at 7. Jerry has him at 13. Richie has him dead in the middle at 10. So there shouldn't be any bias here. Based on the statistics I'm about to give you guys, I'm going to move Ertz up even further up in my rankings. So get ready for this, because this is really... One, the fact that I've lost some of these debates has been absolutely ridiculous. So you listeners, go ahead and put some comments. Give me some feedback. Show me that these guys are absolutely out of their mind. And I'm about to lay the final hammer down with my boy Ertz. Just like his wife just did in the last U.S. soccer game. She put the final game-winning goal in the net. So I'm about to do that right here.
Who was he married to? Sorry.
Her name is Julia Ertz. She's a defender for the U.S. women's soccer team.
Oh,
Yeah, big family. If you saw that whole body magazine for ESPN, they're on the cover together. Check it out.
I don't buy pornography. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's some beautiful people in the world. All right, number 1. Zach Ertz finished 6th in 2016 in total fantasy points. Now, again, all these statistics are going to be with Gronk hurt. So you just got to think about that. Number 2, he was 5th in targets in 2016. Number 3, he was 5th in receiving yards.
5th in the league?
Yes. No, in terms of tight ends.
Okay.
This is all in tight ends. So 5th in targets in 2016, 5th in receiving yards, 8th in snap counts per game. His rapport with Wentz, he's going into a second year. He's had to deal with different quarterbacks each of his first 3 years in the league. Now he's getting a second year with Wentz. He's the clear number 1 as far as the tight end goes. Now I got to lay the hammer. He missed 2 games at the beginning of the year. That was 14 games that I just gave you statistics for. If 16 games, he was on pace for 3rd most tight end targets. If 16 games, he was on pace for 3rd most in receiving yards. If he played 16 games, he was on pace for 4th in total fantasy points in as far as tight ends go. If he played 16 games, he was on pace for 3rd most snaps amongst all tight ends. How do you justify a guy that is on pace to be the 3rd best tight end in the league in 10th or lower? I don't get it. I even have him too low. Based on the same argument that I just made for Delaney, I want to move Ertz ahead of Delaney. So, with everything I just said, I think he's poised for a breakout year. I think Wentz is going to look to him. Wentz is going into a second year. We can debate the Wentz stack all day long. I think both of them are going to be checking down a lot to their wide receiver slot guys, their tight ends. I think that Ertz is in play for a really big year. 7 is just too low. I need to move him up. And it's just, it's so terrible that these guys have them 10th or lower. So you got to help me here. I get you're an Eagles hater, but the numbers speak for themselves. The numbers aren't lying here. There is no reason anything what you're about to say should justify that he be that low at 13. That's not even startable in most fantasy leagues. What you got?
I should have known you were going to challenge me on this guy. I really thought I slid him in just somewhere acceptable so you wouldn't squawk. Like the classic Eagles fan you are. Squawk! Squawk! But I was wrong. Honestly, I may not have thought less about any semi-relevant fantasy player in the history of the game as Zach Ertz. You know what Ertz makes me think of? What's that? Ertz? No. Ertz is the sound that comes out when you try to unscrew the drain in the bathtub to clean it out. Ertz! Ertz! Okay, so the player, football. All right. Okay, I had him ranked number 13 tight end. I don't know. That feels reasonable. I mean, okay, you gave me a lot of good stuff to think about. I don't have a ton of numbers to sway you one way or the other. And I don't even really want to try to do that. He's on an offense with a quarterback that just has a ton left to prove. They've added some more weapons to the passing game. That should help. But, I mean, you said my ranking was downright disrespectful. I feel like I've got him in a pretty reasonable range. The guys ahead of him are guys that have been doing it for a long time or have like solidified roles. He's right in there in that group. It's not necessarily that I like pushed him way down, but to me, he's kind of right on the edge of that. I think the one guy I probably should have had in front of him is Antonio Gates. That's probably what made you mad in hindsight. Fair enough. But I don't know. That's what I got. What do y'all think?
You do have him ahead of Antonio Gates. You have Gates at 15, Ertz at 13.
I mean, dude, I've been looking at pictures of his wife. She's pretty cute. Yeah, playing soccer for USA, but I honestly think
sounds like an off-field distraction to me.
Yeah.
You know, like I said when I was talking about Ebron, I've kind of got my tight ends 5 through 10 in the same tier. I feel like they're all kind of interchangeable. I also, like you, Jerry, haven't thought a whole lot about Ertz. He's just not an exciting player to me. I don't feel like he has those high-scoring games that really jump off the page to you. But what I do love in players is consistency. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize how consistent he was. And Michael made a very, very compelling argument about that. I'm gonna have to re-examine Ertz. If he is as consistent as Mike says, then I'm gonna want to draft him. So, Michael, nice job, man. You won that one.
Ertz. How's that sounding now?
Gertz.
Ooh, that's a good team name right there.
Gertz.
No, Gertz.
I'll steal that.
Don't draft Ertz.
You gotta draft him first.
Never one ever.
You can trade for him. I got him on my team. What you want?
This is not the trading for the MKL podcast. This is the No Sleep Till Football.
I want David Johnson.
All right, guys, that wraps up our rankings challenge. It was not a particularly close battle. I guess it was all right. Jerry had 3 victories. Michael also had 3. And how many did I have, Michael?
Richie had 6.
Ooh, man. I guess that makes me the winner, doesn't it?
Tell him what he wins, Dan Bone.
Dan, the man.
You win the draft rights to Zach Ertz.
Awesome. Solid prize.
And his wife.
I'm into it.
Solid prize.
That's the kicker right there. If they're not playing out of the country.
Well, guys, I really enjoyed doing this. It helped me. It helped me look at a lot of these players in different ways than I would have before. I'm going to adjust some of these rankings as soon as we're done with this. So
yeah, it's really fun because we all think about it kind of from different perspectives. So that's I think it's good. Productive stuff, right?
Yeah, let's do it again soon.
Let's do it.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah.
All right, guys, if you made it this far with us, we can't thank you enough. It warms our hearts to the core that you would stick it out with us this long. If you like our podcast, please hit the subscribe button. And as always, stay woke, friends.
Today's Calvin Benjamin-inspired outro song is brought to you by Trace Crenshaw.
Kryptonite, yeah! keep dropping balls, will they still call you Superman? Will you still throw to me if you keep getting hit in the